When you're creating app icons or icons in general, you can do them both in Adobe Illustrator and in Adobe Photoshop or other pixel-based software or vector-based software. But if you're working with vector software, there's a few things you need to understand and set up, because all of the art eventually gets rasterized, which means it turns from vector lines into pixels because your screens are all pixel based. So let's create an Illustrator file, and we'll do the settings in pixels, and we'll start with 1024 pixels by 1024 pixels. The orientation won't matter because it's square. We want to stay with RGB color because our end product will be red, green, and blue for the monitors. And we'll keep our screen resolution at 72 dpi because what we're doing is not going to be printed necessarily, but it will be viewed on a screen. So we'll create our setup. And now there's a few things that we need to do to set this file up so that we can work on it and see accurately what's going to happen when this gets rasterized. So we want to go into Edit menu, Preferences, General, and set a few things up. So the keyboard increments we'll keep at 1 pixel, and we want to check on Use Preview Bounds. Then we want to go into Units, and we want to select Pixels, and you can leave Type at points. We want to go into Guides and Grids and make a grid line every 1 pixel and subdivisions every 1 pixel. And Show Pixel Grid. So you want to have Show Pixel Grid checked on. And then we want to go into our View menu, and we want to see our pixel preview. And we want to turn on our grid. So now we can see our grid. And also you can turn on your rulers. So this is showing us, we can see approximately 1024 by 1024. But now we can see the grid. So even though we're working with our vector lines, which are mathematics, we'll see what happens when that object gets rasterized, which means the vector turns into pixels. So there's something to be aware of when you're drawing now for pixels. So if we take a line segment and we create a 1 pixel line, so I'm holding down the Shift key and I'm dragging, and let me zoom in here a little bit. So this, let's do this again. So that's a 1 pixel line, and we can see it's not solid. Let's do a 2 pixel line, and it is solid. And let's do a 3 pixel line. And we can see that it is not completely solid. There's some rasterization starting to take place. Let's do a 4 pixel line. And that's solid. And let's just draw another one and we'll increase it. So 5, we can see that it's starting to rasterize. If it goes up to 6, it's solid. If it goes up to 7, it's rasterized, and 8, it's solid, and so forth. So you can see that when the numbers are even, 2, 4, 6, 8, you get a solid line. When the numbers are odd, you get the pixelation starting to happen. So keep that in mind when you're setting up your lines. So let's turn off Snap to Pixel. to fix this problem, if you use the direct selection tool, so let's create a couple of boxes. So we can see that these are starting to get pixelized. And it'll go back and forth. But I can fix this, so if I go into my direct selection tool and just click the line and pull it 1 pixel with snap to grid on, so let's turn on snap to pixel on and move it 1 pixel. It'll tighten up. And I'm holding down the shift key to constrain my movement. So that's a way to, if you have artwork and you're bringing in your artwork and it starts to look pixelated, if you want to clean it up, you can do that pixel by pixel. So to create a squircle, there are templates that you can purchase, and there's plugins that you can get for Adobe Illustrator, but you could make a very quick one just by using the circle tool. So instead of creating an ellipse, a rectangle with rounded corners, we'll start with a circle and extend that out. So I'm holding down the shift key, and I'm going to bring this in. So there's my circle. It is 5 pixels, so I could, keep this in mind. I'm going to keep it at 5 pixels for now. And what happens is, if I select the corners, I can pull these edges out. So I'm going to see if I can put some grid lines in here. So we'll go 4. And now I'm just going to select the pixels and pull the handles to the grid. So holding down the shift key and pulling the handles to those grid points. And you can see it's starting to change the shape. And that's what we want. It will even out. So as long as you don't move these points, it will even out. And you'll get a squircle shape, a square circle shape. And you only need to do this once, and you can save it as a template and then just keep reusing it. So I'm selecting the handle, I'm holding the shift key, and I'm pulling up to the grid line. And so there I go. I have, a close enough squircle that I can work with it. Certainly the mathematics might be better in some of the plugins, and you might get a smoother curve. And you actually can play around with this. So I could try and pull these all the way to the edge, so you can change the shape here. So what if we go all the way to 1 pixel? So that's an even tighter shape. So it's a start. It's something so you can see as this is going that this is not a complete straight. So there's a straight line to part of it. And let's zoom in. So it is rasterized. So let's see if we can fix that. So there we go. That fixed it up. So now we don't have rasterization happening in our line. So this is going to create a very clean shape. It will be a little bit going around the curves because there's no way to avoid that because that's what happens when you try to create a straight line. When you're not going straight, you're going pixel, pixel, pixel. But for the most part, the areas where it is apparently straight they're nice and clean. So there's a start for a squircle, a square circle in Illustrator, and you can do something similar in Photoshop. So the thing about actually designing a squircle or this rounded shape is that you're not going to submit your artwork for the App Store with this shape. So this is just to be used for you, see that you don't go over a perceived border, so that your design will actually work when something with rounded corners is applied to it, when the mask, the rounded corner mask that they use, that Apple would use, is applied to it, that you're within a tolerance. So what you're going to do is, and this might actually be bigger. We'll go uniform 102. So we're going to keep this on its own layer and then lock it. So it's a guide for us now. But we're going to create our artwork. This is artwork. On top, let's move this on top. So I'm clicking and dragging, moving that layer on top, and we can see it. But we're going to work on this layer. So in this case, let's put a gradient background. So I'll go back to my rectangle tool, and we don't want the line here. So let's draw this. I'm holding down the Shift key, and we want to use gradient, but we don't want this line here. So to put a gradient in here, and now I can edit the gradient from the color and the angle. So if I pick these corner boxes, or I can draw it this way. So let's make the shadow and you can see this is the extension, so it determines the guise for the gradient. And we can change the color, so let's go with, so let's make sure we're in RGB mode, and let's select our circle, and we'll go from kind of a yellow to the other one, to maybe a dark red, because that is our color scheme. And let's take our artwork. So this is the artwork that we created for my design. So I'm going to Control C because that was an Illustrator file, and I'll bring that in, and I'll do a Control V and see how that looks. And that's not too bad. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and scale this up. And bring this in. Now if I use my Align tool, so if I click on the Align, I can center this. So now it's completely centered in the area. And it needs a little bit of depth to it, so I'm going to create a drop shadow on this star. But remember, we can't blend with the multicolor, so I'm going to do a copy, paste in front, and then I'm going to take this copy and just shift it to the side. And let me zoom out on my artboard. If I hold down the Alt key when I select the magnifier, I can zoom out. And now I'm going to fill this with a solid color. So we have a kind of a blue shadow. So let's go from a light blue, and then we'll do another copy, paste in front, and I'm going to bring this down kind of off screen and fill this with a darker blue. And now let's blend this. So I'm going to shift pick this one, object, blend, make. Now let's see what the blend type is. So blend options, specify types. We want a smooth color, so we'll go back and do this again. Object, blend, make. So now we have a shadow. Let's reverse these. So let's see what happens if we reverse this. Blend, make. It's a little better. And now I'm going to take my initial object and shift this back here and hit my Align tools. So I can take this and let's go into the Properties panel. So that would be Windows, Properties, and let's bring down the opacity on this so it is just like a shadow. And now this is probably good enough for this icon. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that I turn off my outline, because I want to export this out as a square grid. And that's how it would be submitted to an app store. And you know, you may want to have it square for your designs on your cards or your other elements, that if they are going to be printed, then you need to make sure that your color mode is CMYK and not RGB. But this demo is just to show you how you can set up app design and app concepts. And the useful tools in Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop are the shadow tools, the gradient tools, the line tools, to keep your graphics simple, scalable, clear, and concise. So this design ties in very closely to the look and feel of the entire game. So this would work well. So now I want to export this out. So I'm assuming that this design will be exported out for an app icon, even though we're doing this design for a board game, but the concepts and the design process is transferable. But let's look at how you would export this for an app. So you'd want to do export for screens. And on your artboards, you can have multiple scale sizes. So the Android apps are 512 by 512, and the Apple apps have a variety of sizes that you would put in. So you can add new sizes here. So it probably wouldn't go up above 1024, but if I wanted to do width, I could say, and so the scale is the pixels, and it's a square image, so it would be height and width, and the suffix will put this next to the image. And now if you say export to artboard, it's going to export them out, and it'll open up the artboards, and you can see your images in here. So if we wanted to see the 2048 by 2048, that's the image. And notice it does crop it off, so anything outside of the artboard does not get transferred. So that's the Illustrator version of creating an app icon or an icon graphic. To make a app icon in Photoshop, you can set up the file so it's pixels, and it will be pixels, but you can bring in vector art. So you want to do 124 by 124 pixels, resolution 72 dpi, and keep the color mode to RGB. Unless if you were going to create your icon for print, then you'd want to change this resolution to 300 and your color mode to CMYK. So know what your output is when you're working on your project. So we create this, and this is a square. So what's interesting is I actually can bring in some of the artwork from Illustrator. So if I take this icon out here and I copy it, Control C, I can paste it as a smart object. So I can do Edit, Paste, and if I keep it as a smart object, it will remain as somewhat of a vector, which means it will have the vector controls on it. And let's bring this in a little smaller. If I hold down the Alt key, I'm going to scale from the center. So we're going to do this. And it's on its own separate layer, and that's what I want, because I'm not actually going to change this, but I am going to use it to create some art here. And if I select inside and do create new layer, I now have the ability to fill in that shape. So I'm going to fill in that shape with a gradient. So if I click on my gradient tool, and in gradients, I can go in and change the start and the end colors, and then just paint in here, just drag. I have the gradient inside that shape. Even though I'm not going to use that shape in the end, I'm going to do a few other things. I want to create a background in here. So we're going to try a little different technique. We're going to do a reverse gradient here. So I'll go back to the gradient tool. And you can see up here is my colors, and you can pick the basics. You can find different kinds of gradient values, and then change their ranges and their colors if you want. You can try circular gradient and so forth, but we're going to keep a straight gradient. And here I'm going to go back the other way. So now on this layer, I want to try and add some depth to this. So I'm going to click on my blending options, and let's see what some of these can do. So if we try inner glow, it's given a bit of a highlight on that. And let's try drop shadow. So there's a drop shadow here, added bevel emboss. So that brings it out a little bit. So that's creating some nice shapes on here. So let's say okay. We can look at some of the layer options. So darken, multiply, lighten. So I actually like the normal, so we're going to keep the normal here. And now we can do. Let's do the same thing on this layer. So let's go in and look at some blending options for that layer. Let's try an inner shadow. Not liking that. So that's kind of interesting. So we'll keep that with an inner shadow. And now we want to bring in the star that we had. So I'm going to go back to my Illustrator file, select the vector art, Control C, and bring it back into Photoshop, and Control V to paste. Again, it's going to ask me what do I want to paste this as, a pixel, smart object. I'm going to keep smart object because let me just bring up the layer. Because I can still use the vector part of it like this. And I want to scale this a little bit smaller, so I'm going to hold down the Alt key to scale in the center. And again here, so on this art, let's look at some blending options here. I think this could use shadow, a drop shadow. So let's try drop shadow. No, not a stroke. That's an interesting effect, but gradient overlay, no. Outer glow. Inner glow. So with our drop shadow and our inner glow, we're able to get some nice effects. So let's see if we can increase the opacity. So, and you want to save that before you close it, so let's go back. And that was drop shadow. Some opacity. There was the inner glow. And we'll say OK. So now with some very quick blending options and some layer tools, this icon looks very nice. It has some dimensional appeal to it, and it is in the same style and consistency as the rest of the design for this project. And that's a quick way to do a Photoshop version without a lot of fancy tools, a lot of fancy shape tools, and certainly you can bring in images and work with images. And the same in Illustrator. You can incorporate some more complex shapes and curves and build those up with those tools. But you want to make sure that you keep this design simple and identifiable. And this certainly matches the look of the project that I've been developing for these exercises.